He was known as humanity's weakest hunter, but during one dungeon raid, disaster struck, and just as his life was slipping away, was fixed the moment they awakened, with no chance of growth afterward. Their abilities were ranked from E to S. In this world, a person's power is determined at the moment they awaken, and no amount of training afterward can break that limit. Of course, a tiny number of hunters do awaken a second time and become A rank or even S rank hunters. So the investigators took out a magic power detector. They asked Jinwoo to place his hand on it, clearly hoping the association might gain another powerful hunter. But when the result came out, they were disappointed. It had all been false hope. Jinwoo, however, was more curious about something else. Could they really not see the system window floating in front of him? Judging from their reactions, it seemed he was the only one who could see it. Then, the system suddenly assigned Jinwoo a daily quest: 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and 100 squats, plus a 10-kilometer run. But Jinwoo had no intention of doing it since he was still hospitalized. How could he possibly complete such intense training? Yet the moment midnight arrived, Jinwoo was jolted awake from his sleep. He felt the room shaking violently, and in the next second he was transported into a desert, across 6 different tiers. And unfortunately, Jinwoo sat at the very bottom. Even in dungeons that almost anyone else, chased by monsters, Jinwoo was forced to run for more than 3 hours. Only in the final few seconds, when he was almost at his limit, did the punishment finally end. After that, Jinwoo got up early every day to complete his quests, leaving his doctor completely stunned. They knew hunters had stronger bodies than ordinary people, but they had never seen anyone recover this quickly. Around that time, Juhee was about to visit Jinwoo, but while passing through the hallway, she happened to see him training. Her emotions instantly became a mess, and she quietly left with the flower basket she had brought. Every time Jinwoo completed his daily quest, he received 3 rewards: status recovery, ability points, and a random box. Status recovery removed all fatigue after training, while ability points could be assigned to any stat he wanted to improve. Since Jinwoo wanted to grow stronger as fast as possible, he put everything into strength. As for the random box, Jinwoo usually only got things like pens or bandages from it, but today he opened it and found a key. While he was wondering what it was, for the system suddenly displayed a message: could clear with ease. He would still get beaten half to death by low-level beasts and end up in the hospital. It said the key could move him to a limited-time dungeon and had to be used at a subway station entrance. So Jinwoo prepared some gear. After getting ready, Jinwoo arrived at the location given by the system. His plan for this mission was simple: if he could not win, he would run. The dungeon passage opened, but the moment Jinwoo stepped inside, the entrance sealed shut behind him. That meant there was only one way out now: defeat the boss. Once he entered the dungeon, Jinwoo moved forward on edge because as an E-rank hunter, without teammates, every step was dangerous. Just then, 3 goblins suddenly leapt out in front of him, and the memory of being stabbed before flashed through his mind. Because of that, he fought cautiously, afraid of getting hurt again. But thanks to years of barely surviving deadly fights, Jinwoo managed to dodge every goblin attack with precision. After taking down the first goblin, his confidence surged, and before long, he finished off the remaining 2 as well. Just as Jinwoo lowered his guard, a wolf suddenly charged out. He quickly raised his dagger to block it. That day, Jinwoo had barely recovered from his injuries before heading to the site for a raid supervised by the association. But the moment he arrived, the blade cracked instantly. No way. This could not be happening. Then at that moment, he suddenly remembered that there seemed to be a longsword stored in the system inventory. It was the one Mr. Kim had dropped back in the temple. Jinwoo had no idea why it had ended up with him, but there was no time to think about that now. A steel-fanged wolf was already lunging at him, so Jinwoo quickly pulled out the sword and swung with everything he had. With a single strike, he split the charging, steel-fanged wolf's head in 2. Jinwoo could not help thinking that a sword worth 3 million really was built differently. After catching his breath, he realized he had not only leveled up, but all the wounds he had just taken were gone. While Jinwoo was still confused, 2 more steel-fanged wolves rushed at him from ahead. He quickly raised the longsword to counterattack, only to realize he had swung too hard earlier, and the blade was now stuck in a crack in the stone floor. Luckily, just as the wolves were about to reach him, he managed to pull it free. But this time, Jinwoo's attack was clearly panicked. The hunters around him all greeted him one after another. Seeing this, someone who had not joined a raid in ages asked if Jinwoo was actually strong. The wolf in front dodged it with ease. Seeing that, Jinwoo hurriedly swung again, but the wolf behind caught the blade in its teeth. Jinwoo immediately kicked it in the stomach, then used the momentum to rip open the steel-fanged wolf's skull with one hard pull. When the other wolf saw that it was terrified, it chose to run away on the spot, and only then could Jinwoo finally rest. He opened the system to check his status and found that he had reached level 2. Before this, completing daily quests had never changed his level at all. It seemed real combat was the fastest way to grow. At the same time, Jinwoo noticed that every stat had increased by 1 point. In other words, the system had effectively given him 5 stat points at once. After checking his own information, Jinwoo walked over to the steel-fanged wolf's corpse to see if there was a magic crystal, but this dungeon was clearly different from normal ones. Monsters here only dropped items. He picked up the steel-fanged wolf's fang and looked it over, but it did not seem useful. Then he found the shop inside the system. Although his level was still too low to open it fully, he could at least sell items, since everyone seemed to know him. The older man beside him explained that the truth was exactly the opposite. So Jinwoo sold the fang and received 20 gold. After taking care of that, Jinwoo began thinking about how to get out. Right now, he had only 2 options: defeat the boss or use a return stone. But he had no idea how to obtain a return stone, so his only choice was to keep pushing deeper into the dungeon. Just then, Jinwoo suddenly spotted an entire pack of steel-fanged wolves up ahead. Facing that many steel-fanged wolves at once was still difficult, but Jinwoo's strength had already improved, so he could just barely handle them. Before long, he defeated them all, gaining several levels in the process. He also earned a title that boosted his stats by 40% when fighting beasts, along with a return stone that could take him out of the dungeon. After thinking it over, Jinwoo felt that this dungeon was like a special event in a game. If he let this chance slip by, he might never get another opportunity to grow stronger, so he chose to keep going. After that, Jinwoo killed who knew how many more monsters. He discovered that monsters weaker than him had white names, those on his level had orange names. Jinwoo had only joined recently, and everyone called him humanity's weakest weapon. Hearing that, Jinwoo did not get angry, and red names belonged to enemies stronger than him. Now when he looked at the steel-fanged wolves that had once been orange, their names had already turned white, proving just how much stronger he had become. Jinwoo was now level 15. At this point, he had almost reached the limit of leveling through ordinary monsters. If he wanted to grow any further, he had to challenge the boss. But after so many intense battles, his sword was badly worn down, and he had no idea whether it could survive the fight ahead. Soon Jinwoo reached the deepest part of the dungeon, an abandoned subway platform. As he was observing his surroundings, a shadow suddenly emerged from the drainage channel beside the tracks and charged straight at him. One morning strike sent him flying, and the damaged sword in his hand snapped completely. Facing a giant snake whose strength matched his own, Jinwoo had no idea what to do because its body was covered in tough scales. Even an undamaged sword could not hurt it, let alone his bare hands now. But even so, Jinwoo had no other choice. Clutching the broken blade, he charged at the giant snake again, because the man was only stating the truth. Then Jinwoo started walking toward the dungeon entrance when a voice suddenly called out to him. No matter how hard he struggled, the boss refused to give him even the slightest opening. Jinwoo's attack failed to leave a scratch, and the giant snake seized the chance to whip him away with its tail. Under attacks that powerful, he felt as if his body was about to give out completely. In that desperate moment, the one thought most likely to keep him alive was simple. He could not die here. If he wanted to protect his family and escape the fate of being weak, then he had to get stronger. Driven by that determination, Jinwoo somehow grabbed the boss with his bare hands and crushed it. Because of that, he obtained a new weapon with twice the attack power of his previous sword, plus effects that could paralyze enemies and cause bleeding. And that was not even the most shocking reward. The venom dropped by the giant snake could reduce physical damage by 20%, though it also lowered strength by 35%. After he finished checking everything, the system restored the dungeon to its original state. Jinwoo was once again standing in the same subway station where he had entered. But the moment he walked out, a soldier called out to him. It was his friend Ju-hee. Seeing fresh injuries on his face, she grew worried and stayed by his side. The soldier asked Jinwoo why he was still coming this way after the announcement had already been broadcast. But then, the soldier suddenly noticed the broken blade in Jinwoo's hand and assumed he was a hunter who had come to help, so he led him to the dungeon break site. Not long ago, a dungeon had appeared right in the middle of a city road, but no guild was willing to handle it. As a result, the seal broke, and the monsters inside came pouring out. Fortunately, the Hunters Association quickly gathered freelance hunters and brought the situation under control. Now only one D-rank boss remained. Jinwoo followed the soldier to the scene and saw that most of the hunters fighting were E-rank. The only D-rank among them was a tank, so they had no way to break through the boss's defense. Just then, Jinwoo suddenly spotted Ju-hee in the corner. Ever since escaping the temple, she had developed a deep fear of stone statues. Because of that trauma, every time she tried to cast healing magic, she failed. Seeing this, Jinwoo had no choice but to step in and help his friend. But even Jinwoo never expected, asking how he had been lately. Before long, the raid was about to begin, and the one chosen to lead the team this time. That after joining another squad as a filler member just to do odd jobs in a dungeon the moment they reached the boss room, the others would lock him inside with a rich rookie clearly planning to use the boss to kill them and steal their belongings. But as an E-rank hunter, Jinwoo did not panic at all in front of this C-rank boss. That was because not long ago he had obtained a system, and by completing the quest it gave him every day, he had gained enough strength to casually one-shot D-rank monsters, while his body had become incredibly well-built. Even the doctor in charge of him could not help wanting to ask for his contact information after seeing him. Of course, Jinwoo himself still had not fully noticed just how much he had changed. It was only after he returned home and his sister asked if he had been working out lately that he realized he did seem a little taller. But Jinwoo understood that this had to be the result of his stats, since all the points he had gained from leveling recently had been poured into strength. If things kept going like this, he might actually turn into a bodybuilder. A system window suddenly appeared before his eyes, displaying a message addressed to Jinwoo. Was Mr. Song the highest-ranked hunter among them? After entering the dungeon, Jinwoo barely managed to take down one low-level beast, so Jinwoo began thinking carefully about where he should put the stat points he had earned from solo clearing the last dungeon. Although adding strength did increase his damage, it would be useless in real combat if he could not actually land a hit. So Jinwoo evenly distributed his points between strength, agility, and vitality. As for intelligence, he figured it was probably related to magic, so he did not consider it for now. Just as he finished assigning his points, a phone call came in. Seeing his landlord's name, he quickly answered, and sure enough, the call was about overdue rent. Jinwoo had been hospitalized for a while and had not paid it, but the landlord knew earning money was not easy for him and said a few more days would be fine. But Jinwoo was no longer the same E-rank hunter he used to be, so he decided to clear a few dungeons and earn some money. First, he needed to pay the rent. However, after searching through the Hunter app, he still could not find anything suitable. Only higher-ranked dungeons paid well, but with his current identity as an E-rank hunter, he was not allowed to enter them. Thinking of that, Jinwoo considered getting his rank measured again, but he quickly rejected the idea and obtained its magic crystal. But before he could even feel happy about it, another monster lunged at him. After all, cases like his were far too rare, and since he could keep leveling up, being exposed might make him a target. In the end, Jinwoo had no choice but to find a squad online that wanted to enter a C-rank dungeon, but was short on people. When he arrived, they explained that entering a C-rank dungeon required at least 8 members, while they only had 6, so they needed Jinwoo to fill the headcount. Of course, before that, he had to sign a contract stating that if anything happened to him inside the dungeon, he could not hold them responsible. His job was only to carry luggage, not fight or share in the loot, and he would receive a headcount fee of 2 million won. While signing, Jinwoo noticed the squad had no healer, so he casually asked about it. The leader said they were a private squad, which made healers hard to recruit, but Jinwoo still felt something was off. After he finished signing, another person the leader had contacted finally arrived. He was only a rookie hunter, but the gear covering his body was clearly high-end. One look was enough to tell he came from money, and sure enough, on the way there. Seeing that Joo-hee could not help scolding him, asking why he insisted on staying a hunter, Jinwoo learned that the blonde kid was only 21, that this was his first dungeon, and that his name was Jinho. Knowing Jinwoo's rank was low, Jinho even offered to let him stand behind him once they went in, saying he could protect him better that way. Soon they entered the dungeon, but this time, something felt unusual. Most dungeons were lit by luminous stones, yet this place was completely dark. Even after the mage used a spell to light the cave, there was not a single monster in sight. As they pushed deeper, the group eventually reached a fork in the cave. Just then, strange sounds echoed around them. Everyone went on guard, but no one could tell where the noise was coming from. Jinwoo's instincts, however, were razor sharp, and he quickly realized the sound was coming from directly above them. The monsters dropped from the ceiling without warning, but the squad reacted instantly and cut them down with practiced precision. Watching how they fought, Jinwoo could tell they had worked together many times before, which explained their seamless teamwork. Yet that strange feeling only grew stronger. With 6 people this skilled, clearing a C-rank dungeon should have been easy. Every raid left him covered in wounds, and if he kept going like this, something terrible would happen sooner or later. Jinwoo knew she was only worried about him. So why had they not found a regular filler member? Thinking this, Jinwoo quietly warned Jinho to be careful, because the expensive gear he was wearing made him far too noticeable. After clearing the monsters there, the group continued deeper until they reached the mana stone deposit. Everyone was stunned. The place was packed with mana crystals everywhere. Even without a mage to appraise them properly, this much ore could still be worth around 100 million won per person. Just then, Jinho suddenly remembered something and asked to see the contract Jinwoo had signed today. The leader reassured him that they would not cheat anyone, and only then did Jinhu finally relax. But before they could move the mana stones, they had to avoid waking the boss. Since it happened to be asleep, they could use this chance to quietly mine the mana crystals. After all, if they defeated the boss, the dungeon would soon begin to close. And even if they rushed, they would never finish digging everything out. But he had no idea how to answer. Just then, a hunter discovered a hidden passage and called everyone over to take a look. So the leader told Jinwoo to bring over the luggage so they could start mining, but then another squad member spoke up. They did not have enough mining tools because no one had expected this much ore, so they had not brought enough equipment inside. The rest of the tools were still in the car. After discussing it, the squad decided to leave Jinwoo and Jinho behind to watch the place while they went back for the tools. Then, without giving Jinho a chance to ask questions, they walked away. Seeing this, Jinwoo finally understood what that uneasy feeling had been. Mr. Song had once told him that some people committed crimes inside dungeons by bringing rookies along and using them as bait since there were no cameras inside. In a place like that, how the victims died was whatever the survivors claimed it was. And now Jinwoo realized he and Jinho had been left in the perfect trap. To defeat the cave spider, Jinwoo had no choice but to reveal his true strength. Was he really planning to solo a C-rank boss? Those movements were absolutely not E-rank. Just who was this man? Normally, once the boss was defeated, a dungeon would begin showing signs of closing. Jinho had heard rumors before about false rankers, rare hunters, who deliberately controlled their magic power to receive a lower evaluation. And those people were usually twisted killers who enjoyed hunting humans. Jinho never imagined this ordinary-looking C-rank squad would be hiding monsters on both sides. Meanwhile, Jinwoo had already burned through half his fatigue. Ordinary attacks were doing almost nothing to the spider. The key to victory now lay in the dagger's special effect. As long as he struck its weak point, the effect could keep stacking. But just as he tried to rush in, the acid from the spider's mouth caught Jinwoo off guard. Its solid shell and corrosive acid made it far harder to handle than expected, and even a frontal assault required closing the distance first. To do that, Jinwoo spent gold to gain a brief burst of speed, aiming to break through in one explosive charge. But he never expected even the spider's head to be armored like stone. Just as Jinwoo tried to push his speed to the limit, his body had already reached its breaking point in a single moment of distraction. But this time there was no reaction at all, which meant they might have stumbled into a double dungeon, left him open to a fatal blow. At the last second, Jinwoo used the special reward from his quest and dodged the killing strike, restoring his entire body just in time. By the time the spider reacted again, Jinwoo was already on its head with his dagger buried deep in its eye. As the first strike's effect activated, Jinwoo did not dare slow down for even a moment, repeating the same motion again and again until the boss finally collapsed. At the side, Jinho suddenly became extremely nervous. He never imagined Jinwoo could actually defeat a C-rank boss and to survive. He forced a smile onto his face, terrified Jinwoo might kill him for some reason too. Just as Jinwoo found Jinho's behavior strange, voices suddenly came from the cave above them. Looking up, he saw it was indeed the same group that had betrayed them. When they saw the spider had failed to kill the two, they looked disappointed and decided the creature must have been impressive only in appearance. At that moment, they still believed Jinwoo and Jinho had beaten the boss thanks to Jinho's expensive gear. By protocol, they were supposed to report something like this to the association before making any further decision. But they clearly had not grasped how serious things had become. And as they slowly closed in, an urgent message appeared on Jinwoo's system window. The urgent quest ordered him to kill 6 enemies. But before Jinwoo could even process it, the enemy mage attacked first. The spell blasted Jinwoo away. He had still been hesitating, but now that one hit snapped him fully awake and gave him every reason he needed. After a fierce inner struggle, Jinwoo decided to kill the 6 people in front of him. How could he ever forget their betrayal? The weak had no dignity, and if he could not become stronger, everything he had would eventually be taken from him. When Jinwoo questioned them, the others only looked confused. Then one of them stepped forward and walked right up to Jinwoo, saying Jinwoo clearly still did not understand the situation. What could humanity's weakest weapon possibly hunt? The moment those words left his mouth, but doing that would be the same as handing over prey already in their grasp. So some members wanted to skip the report. Jinwoo slit the man's throat. As his head hit the ground, the quest counter went up by 1. Seeing this, the others were stunned. When had Jinwoo even taken out a weapon? Even if they had let their guard down, how could he instantly kill a D-rank hunter in a single strike? Facing their coordinated attack, Jinwoo showed no panic at all. In fact, he moved with calm, effortless precision. After watching 2 teammates fall one after another, they finally realized how serious things were. But by then, it was already too late. In just a few seconds, the 6-man squad had been reduced to one final survivor. The leader could not believe Jinwoo had wiped out his entire team in an instant. Only now did he realize Jinwoo had been hiding his strength all along. The spider from earlier must have been defeated by him too. After Jinwoo killed the squad leader, the dungeon immediately began to collapse. Once they escaped, Jinwoo and Jinho submitted the casualty report to the guild reception. An 8-person C-rank squad had somehow left only a D rank and an E rank alive, so the staff naturally grew suspicious and go straight in. Mr. Song decided to put it to a vote, but no one expected. But after seeing Jinho's high-end equipment, their doubtful looks finally faded. Every time Jinwoo completed a quest, his stats increased. But today he unexpectedly noticed that he had run 1 extra kilometer, and that extra progress could actually be accumulated. After thinking for a moment, he did a few more push-ups, and the system automatically added the extra count. Realizing the quest numbers could stack, Jinwoo decided to run several more kilometers. After pushing every part of the daily quest beyond its requirement, Jinwoo discovered that the system had sent him a hidden quest called Preparation to Become Strong. More accurately, his daily quest had transformed into a hidden quest. After accepting the granted reward, the system gave him a chest. When he opened it, what appeared before him was a red key, a key leading to the demon castle. And its difficulty was S rank. Clearly, a dungeon like that was still too early for the current Jinwoo. He had met the conditions for a secret quest, and now he had only 2 choices: refuse, and his heart would stop after 0.02 of a second. The final result to be tied with 6 votes for and 6 against, leaving only Jinwoo undecided. Then Jinwoo thought of how his father had never returned. But just as he was hesitating, he suddenly noticed something. Inside the demon castle, he could obtain materials for the holy water of life. Realizing that the holy water might be able to save his mother, Jinwoo decided he would go only after he was fully prepared. That night, he came home with fried chicken and told his sister some good news. He had found a possible way to help their mother recover. His sister was shocked and wondered if he had made a fortune from his last job. And since he did not look injured, she assumed his teammates must have been incredibly strong. Jinwoo, however, could barely answer. Thinking back on what happened, he knew that without the system, he would have died in that place long ago. What was unbelievable was that back then he had not hesitated at all, and he had not even felt guilt toward them. If it had been the old him, he definitely would have tried to run. Just as he thought about that, the system began detecting harmful substances. Then it activated a skill called longevity, which seemed to be another new ability. Jinwoo quickly made up an excuse and returned to his room. After drinking an entire box of beer in one go, he finally realized he could no longer get drunk. His mother still needed hospital bills paid, and his younger sister was about to take her college entrance exams, so to earn more money. The system's special ability automatically broke down the alcohol in his body. The next day, Jinho came to see Jinwoo again. This time, his main goal was to ask Jinwoo to work with him in creating a guild. It turned out Jinho was the second son of Yujin Construction, and the reason he wanted to become a guild master was also because of the company. His father planned to establish a guild, and the reason was obvious. Although dungeons were dangerous, almost anything inside them could be turned into profit. In other words, they wanted hunters under the company to clear dungeons, claim all the loot, and build a self-sustaining business model. Jinho did not deny it. His father planned to hire an S-rank hunter as the guild master and have Jinho's older brother serve as vice master, running the guild like a corporation. But S-rank hunters were painfully rare, with only 7 in Korea, and bringing one in would cost an enormous amount of money, the kind of offer only a major company could even consider. So Jinho tried to recruit Jinwoo instead, offering him 30 billion won. Jinwoo had no choice but to vote in favor as well. Led by Mr. Song, the group soon reached the deepest part of the cave, 30 billion won for joining 19 C-rank raids. The old Jinwoo would have accepted without hesitation, but now he had the system. If there was no limit to his level, then everything changed. And at his current growth rate, it would not take long for him to reach S-rank or even become someone beyond S-rank. Seen that way, 30 billion won was not worth much. More importantly, until he fully understood the system, carelessly teaming up with someone else could only create problems. So Jinwoo made his decision clear. He told Jinho he was not interested. Meanwhile, the S-rank hunter, Hwang Dong-soo, who was in America, had already learned about his older brother's death. He had also obtained information about the killer in advance. Afterward, he asked his assistant what would happen if he killed someone overseas, seeing that Hwang Dong-soo was not joking. The assistant explained that if the country had signed an extradition treaty related to hunter crimes, the chamber was filled with enormous stone statues, but there was none of the treasure they had imagined. Then someone noticed writing carved into a stone tablet. Then he would be punished under that country's laws. But if there was no extradition treaty, then he would be judged under the laws of his own country. After hearing that, Hwang Dong-soo told his assistant to clear his upcoming schedule. He would be leaving America for a while. Meanwhile, Jinwoo knew he could not clear the demon castle with his current strength, but luckily he already had a return stone. If things truly went badly, he could use it to teleport out. But in the blink of an eye, he encountered his first monster. It was Cerberus the Hellhound, and the Beast Slayer title he had earned before immediately came into effect. Jinwoo activated Sprint, first pushing his speed to the limit. Even though he had already equipped his best gear, his attacks still could not deal any real damage, even with the double boss boost. The gap between them was still enormous. So Jinwoo directly activated his active skill, Murderous Intent. But Cerberus's resistance was too high, and the effect of Murderous Intent was cancelled outright. Not only that, Mr. Song, who could read ancient script, stepped forward to examine it and said it spoke of worshipping God. The paralysis and poison effects he relied on also failed because of the difference in level. Before he could even react, Cerberus appeared right in front of him and bit Jinwoo down to critical health, tearing off one of his arms in the process. In a single instant, 1/3 of his health was gone. But it was not over yet because Cerberus immediately activated its skill, Rage. For 3 minutes, all of its stats would double. Even worse, it seemed unable to feel pain. In other words, no matter how Jinwoo struck its weak points, it would not be affected. The relentless attacks caught Jinwoo completely off guard, and his health was already near empty. Luckily, the system automatically activated Tenacity, saving him from being killed instantly. Just as he was considering whether to use the teleport, Cerberus suddenly attacked again and shattered Jinwoo's last hope. With no choice left, he kept running while the system continued warning him that his health had reached a dangerous limit. Jinwoo had already used every method he had, yet nothing worked at all. One more hit and he would be finished. But just then, praising God in similar commandments. But while everyone was absorbed in the text, the stone door at the entrance suddenly slammed shut. He suddenly remembered the healing potions sold in the shop. Although they were expensive, he could not afford to care right now. Those few potions were a lifeline, but they still could not solve the real problem. Then by chance, Jinwoo suddenly remembered that inside his inventory, he still had a bottle of Kasaka's venom. Seeing no other way, he drank the poison in one gulp, just as Cerberus sensed his presence again. Fortunately, Cerberus's rage skill had also timed out, and the pain from Jinwoo's attacks instantly flooded through its body. Seeing that the moment had finally come, Jinwoo did not hesitate. He grabbed Cerberus by the eye and struck with everything he had. At last, after relentlessly attacking its weak point, Jinwoo finally defeated the S-rank beast before him and received another key after the battle. But after reading its description, he realized that the Cerberus he had just fought was only the gatekeeper. At the same time, the system sent him the recipe for the holy water of life. Unfortunately, every required material had to be obtained inside the demon castle. Realizing his current strength, seeing that someone in the party wanted to turn back at once, but Jinwoo suddenly realized was still not enough to obtain the holy water of life. Jinwoo went to negotiate with Jinho again. This time, he completely changed his attitude. Jinwoo agreed to Jinho's proposal to team up for 19 dungeon raids, but he added one condition. All 19 raids had to be cleared with only Jinho. As for the other 6 slots, they could simply hire people to fill the numbers, just like Hwang Dong-suk had done. At the same time, people from Yujin Construction reached out to the S-rank hunter, Cha Hae-in, to recruit her. News that Yujin planned to establish a guild also reached the White Tiger Guild and the Hunters Guild, but clearly, their focus was not on that right now, because there was something far more important they had to deal with. That was the timing for the next raid on Ant Island. Ever since the 3rd assault mission, the island had been placed off limits. Now, people could only conduct simple investigations along the coast and hold the annual memorial ceremony there. Choi Jong-in felt that people had forgotten the terror that island once brought, but at least he would never forget it. As the man praised as humanity's ultimate weapon, he decided that in the near future, he would challenge Ant Island again. It felt as if a pair of eyes was staring at him from behind. The statue had not moved at all, yet the very next second left him terrified. Meanwhile, Jinwoo once again received a D-rank raid assembly notice from the Hunters Association. After thinking for a moment, he decided to head to the gate and join the group. At the same time, Mr. Song, Joo-hee, and Kim Sang-shik also received invitations for this D-rank raid. Perhaps it was fate, because the survivors of the double dungeon incident had met again, this time as members of the same raid team. But before they could catch up, a black van pulled up by the roadside, and what came into view were 3 men in restraints. They were the other 3 participants in this dungeon raid. No one expected that these men would actually be their teammates today, or more precisely, prisoners working off their sentences. They were all hunters who had committed crimes and had volunteered for dungeon raids in exchange for reduced punishment. After all, the region had a limited number of hunters, and they were badly short on manpower. Fortunately, this raid was being supervised by Kang Taishik from the surveillance division, so the prisoners would not dare act recklessly. With one casual blast, it caused massive destruction, and Jinwoo did not dare move a muscle, because no one knew who would be killed next. After all, a single B-rank hunter could handle 3 C-rank hunters at once. Once everyone finished discussing things, they chose Mr. Song as the leader. But Jinwoo never imagined that this raid had already pulled him into an assassination crisis. Soon after the group entered the D-rank dungeon, perhaps because the team's overall strength was fairly high, the raid went much more smoothly than expected. Low-level monsters like goblins could now be handled easily even by Jinwoo. Up to this point, Joo-hee had not needed to cast a single healing spell on him, something that would have been unthinkable before. Mr. Song also noticed a clear change in Jinwoo. It was not just his appearance. Even his entire presence felt different, to the point that Mr. Song almost felt like Jinwoo was no longer an E-rank hunter. Then amid the group's lighthearted chatter, they arrived at a fork in the path. 3 tunnels stretched out before them, and Kang Tae-shik suggested they split up, since the dungeon seemed easier than expected. Jinwoo stayed perfectly still, but someone else could no longer hold back. A young hunter unleashed all his strength. Everyone agreed to the idea. Perhaps because his perception had improved, Jinwoo suddenly sensed something unusual. Jinwoo could tell at a glance that the left tunnel led to the boss, so he called Mr. Song and Joo-hee to join his group, while Jung-ho paired with Kim Sang-shik. Kang Tae-shik went with the prisoners. But just as everyone else entered their tunnels, Jinwoo noticed Kang Tae-shik seemed to smile at him. It was as if he was planning something, and sure enough, Kang Tae-shik had been hired before they even entered the dungeon to kill those 3 criminals. Those 3 men had destroyed a man's entire family. Yet after committing such horrific crimes, their punishment was only a few years in prison. Even worse, they still kept their hunter licenses. Apparently, even imprisoned hunters could reduce their sentences by joining raid missions. For the victims' families, that kind of punishment was nothing but another wound. So Kang Tae-shik had decided to throw away the rules and judge them himself. Meanwhile, the prisoners' screams drew Kim Sang-shik and Jung-ho over to check what was happening, or accept and become a player. Jinwoo had no idea what that meant, but when he thought of his mother, who needed medical treatment, and tried to sprint to the gate at full speed, but before he had even crossed 2 meters, he was killed so completely that nothing remained. The 2 of them were shocked by the scene before them and asked Kang Tae-shik what he was doing. Hearing their voices, Kang Tae-shik finally realized the tunnels were connected, which meant the boss room was actually down the left path. It seemed plans really could not keep up with reality. At the same time on Jinwoo's side, they suddenly heard Kim Sang-shik scream, and the group immediately turned back toward the source of the sound. What came into view were the bodies of the 3 prisoners, along with Jung-ho, who had already been killed, and Kim Sang-shik, who was barely clinging to life. Seeing this, Jinwoo immediately told Joo-hee to cast healing magic, but by then it was already too late. Mr. Song noticed that the wounds did not look like they had been caused by monsters. They were made by sharp blades, and each one had deliberately avoided a quick fatal strike. Realizing he did not have long left, Kim Sang-shik told Joo-hee to stop healing him. Before they could even grieve, Kang Tae-shik suddenly appeared from above. Fortunately, Jinwoo reacted in time and blocked the surprise attack. After realizing his ambush had failed, staring at that horrifying scene, Jinwoo could not understand why the statue had the power to kill them, yet had not attacked right away. Kang Tae-shik immediately created distance. He had planned to kill the healer first, but he never expected that strike to be stopped. The culprit behind everything had clearly revealed himself. Seeing the others arrive, he came up with a new story. At first, he had planned to tell everyone they were wiped out by goblins. But now, it would be better to pin the blame on the criminals instead, since dead men could not talk. Realizing Kang Tae-shik had no intention of leaving anyone alive, Mr. Song decided to fight him personally and picked up Kim Sang-shik's sword. Then he asked Joo-hee to cast physical enhancement magic on him. Assassin-type hunters usually had the weakness of low defense, so if they attacked that point, there might still be a chance. Although Mr. Song had awakened as a mage the moment he held a sword, he became a swordsman. Even now, he still could not understand why someone with his talent for swordsmanship had awakened with magic instead. If Song Chi-yeol had awakened as a swordsman, he would never have been just a C-rank hunter. Kang Tae-shik mocked him, saying a mage was using a sword instead of magic. So he compared it to ordinary monsters, and a sudden thought struck him. The way to survive might lie in the rules. Did he really think adding physical enhancement would let him stand against him? Although it lasted only an instant, Mr. Song's speed really did almost catch up to Kang Tae-shik, and his attacks were fast, sharp, and precise. Even Kang Tae-shik had to acknowledge Song Chi-yeol's strength. He truly did have the skill to abandon magic and attack with a sword. But that was all. The power granted to him was limited in the end. Kang Tae-shik's strength, however, was the real thing. A C-rank mage could never keep up with an assassin-type hunter's speed. That meant this fight had been decided from the very beginning. But just then, Mr. Song suddenly placed his hand on the ground and unleashed his strongest fire magic. In truth, he had never planned to win with a sword from the start. During the fight, Mr. Song had already been secretly setting up a magic circle. Still, that strike failed to hit Kang Tai-shik. He had pretended to be a swordsman to lower Kang Tai-shik's guard against magic, then waited for the perfect moment to strike. After learning from Mr. Song that the first commandment was to worship God, Jinwoo felt as though he had found the answer. And then, the same person blocked Kang Tai-shik's attack again. Just who was this man? Clearly, Kang Tai-shik did not believe Jinwoo was really E-rank, because with E-rank reflexes, there was no way he could have stopped two of his attacks. So Jinwoo had to be hiding his strength. Since the others seemed to know him, Kang Tai-shik first ruled out the possibility that he was a false ranker, because someone like that would never leave witnesses alive. If so, the only possibility was a second awakening. But none of that mattered now. As a hunter, Jinwoo still seemed inexperienced, so Kang Tai-shik decided as his senior to teach him a few things. But before they fought, Jinwoo had one question. Why had Kang Tai-shik done all this? On the surface, he claimed it was justice that he was removing threats for the people, but his twisted expression had already revealed his true nature. He was a B-rank hunter that major guilds would fight to recruit. So why would someone like him join the low-paying Hunters Association? Obviously, killing people gave him far more pleasure than killing monsters. In the first exchange, the two were evenly matched, their speed almost identical. He slowly stood up and looked toward the statue. Sure enough, its beam activated, and Jinwoo immediately lowered his head. But even with similar strength, Jinwoo was still lacking when it came to experience fighting humans. Kang Tai-shik pressed him hard, forcing Jinwoo to read every movement on instinct. Jinwoo thought of his family, of the people he had to protect, and forced himself to keep moving, no matter how cornered he became. To survive, he had to become the one thing standing in Kang Tai-shik's way. Kang Tai-shik felt certain he had the advantage, yet for some reason, fear began creeping into him. Just to be safe, Kang Tai-shik decided to use the trump card he had kept hidden until now. In an instant, he vanished from Jinwoo's sight. This was his proudest skill, stealth, which could hide not only killing intent, but also his form, sound scent, and every trace of his presence. Even among assassin-type hunters, very few possessed a skill like this. Of course, no one alive knew he could use it, because everyone who had seen it was already dead. Now that Jinwoo's movements were sealed, how could he possibly dodge the next attack? The statue's attack faded away. His guess had been right, so he quickly told everyone to bow their heads. But Kang Tai-shik never expected Jinwoo's wounds to heal in an instant. A combat hunter who could use healing magic. Kang Tai-shik had never heard of anything like it. How many more hidden cards did Jinwoo still have? He could no longer predict him at all. There was no doubt Jinwoo was dangerous. Could he really be using Kang Tai-shik's killing intent to pinpoint his location? But even then, he should not have been able to know Kang Tai-shik's exact position. At that moment, Kang Tai-shik simply could not understand how an E-rank hunter had the power to defeat him. But even Jinwoo himself did not fully know the answer. What if he said he was the kind of hunter who could keep growing stronger in the middle of battle? That answer left Kang Tai-shik completely stunned. Jinwoo never imagined that one day, while other hunters still needed teams to challenge dungeons, he would be doing the exact opposite. They had to show reverence to God. The others thought it sounded unreliable, but with no better option, not only did he choose to solo the entire raid, he would not even let his teammates enter the gate because to Jinwoo, those people were nothing more than filler. After he defeated Kang Tai-shik, Chief Wu from the surveillance division came to speak with Jinwoo alone. To be honest, he did not believe an E rank could defeat a B rank in one strike, but once again suspicion that Jinwoo was a second awakener became an obstacle. Before leaving, Chief Wu warned Jinwoo to be extra careful for a while, because the S-rank hunter Hwang Dong-soo had already set his sights on that dungeon incident. What happened inside did not matter. What mattered was that Hwang Dong-soo's brother died, while Jinwoo came out alive. To raise his strength as quickly as possible, Jinwoo met Jinho the very next day to begin their 19 dungeon raids. But what he did not expect was that their teammates this time were even weaker than he imagined. He had said anyone would do. But this was almost too casual. They had even recruited high school students. Still, it did not matter. After all those people only needed to wait outside, and getting paid 3 million won for one raid was not an opportunity that came often. They could only follow Jinwoo's method. As they bowed, the light in the statue's eyes slowly dimmed. As for Jinho, he had prepared thoroughly for these raids. Just the armor he was wearing had cost tens of millions of won to make. And so began the 19-raid partnership between the two of them. At first, everyone thought these two had lost their minds. For a dungeon of this level, even a normal attack team would need around 2 hours, let alone a team of only 2 people. But to everyone's shock, the two of them cleared the dungeon in only 15 minutes. Just who were these people? With one speed clear after another, Jinwoo's level began rising at a terrifying pace. The aura he gave off was now enough to make even dungeon monsters tremble. although he had gained many interesting skills. Each skill had a long cooldown, so from here on, his stat points needed to lean toward intelligence. Jinwoo's current strength could be called the strongest below A rank. Just as he was wondering whether to enter the demon castle like this, the system officially sent him a notification the player had reached a specific level and could now begin the job change quest. Then it revealed a neat row of teeth, as if declaring they had passed the first trial. Seeing this, everyone cautiously stood up. At the same time, news spread that a single attack team had taken control of a large number of C-rank dungeons. That news also reached Section Chief An of the White Tiger Guild. When he heard the team's leader was the second son of Yujin Construction, he could not make sense of it. Running raids like this was guaranteed to lose money, and even for a rich heir looking for fun, it was far too extreme. Just as he was struggling to understand it, An Sungmin suddenly noticed a teammate named Jin Woo on the list. Was that not the survivor from the double dungeon incident? No wonder Yujin Construction was spending so much. With his sharp instincts, Section Chief An immediately understood the situation. This Jin Woo was probably a second awakener, and he had already survived 3 major incidents. First, the double dungeon. Second, Hwang Dong-suk's attack team incident. And third, the surveillance division, Hunter, murdering prisoners. Almost no one involved in those incidents had survived. Yet E-rank Jinwoo had walked away alive every time. If he was not a second awakener, then none of this made sense. So White Tiger soon found Jinwoo and came to negotiate with him. And indeed, no attack came. But just then the statues rose to their feet in an eerie motion. They explained that the White Tiger Guild was one of the top guilds in the country, always searching for exceptional talent. Section Chief An got straight to the point and said he had come to recruit him. Whatever Yujin Construction was paying, White Tiger was willing to offer him twice as much. But after hearing the full story behind Jinwoo's arrangement, Section Chief An froze on the spot. He never imagined Yujin Construction had casually offered a 30 billion won building. If he had known that earlier, he would have gathered better information before coming. Before Section Chief An could even react, a thin cut appeared across his face. So Jinwoo was not only a second awakener, but one with a stealth skill. No wonder Yujin Construction was willing to spend such an enormous amount to recruit him. By now, Section Chief An was drenched in cold sweat. He apologized to Jinwoo with the humblest attitude possible, saying he had only heard someone was monopolizing dungeons, and his younger sister preparing for college. He accepted without hesitation. From that moment on, his path to becoming the strongest began. They began walking toward the group, and even Jinwoo was stunned. Maybe they had to obey the second commandment and preventing their rookies from training, so he had come to investigate discreetly. Jinwoo did not bother explaining much. He simply said he did not want anyone else learning anything about him. If rumors about him appeared later, the consequences would be severe. Section Chief An was practical enough to understand. By procedure, he should report this upward, but he had no desire to die, so he promised to keep his subordinates' mouths shut. Once Jinwoo received that assurance, he took the chance to squeeze out an extra deal. Since their group, occupying C-rank gates, had caused White Tiger plenty of trouble, he offered to sell them the 3 C-rank gates he had already reserved. The offer was valid only for today. If they missed this chance, White Tiger might not be able to secure any C-rank gates for quite some time. After all, everything inside a C-rank dungeon combined was worth around 200 million won at most. Section Chief An asked if Jinwoo could sell them at that value, and Jinwoo agreed without hesitation, offering enough praise to make the statue stop. The long-haired hunter instantly understood what he meant. Seeing him accept so easily, An could not help wondering if he had just been played. After the two sides reached an agreement, Section Chief An became even more certain that the man before him would one day become someone far beyond imagination. But the next morning, Section Chief An received yet another surprise from Jinwoo. It turned out there were still plenty of C-rank gates in the area, and Yujin Construction had not reserved any gates besides those 3. But that was not even the main point. The real problem was that the bidding prices for those gates were all under 70 million won. They had been tricked. Their very first negotiation had turned into a lesson from Jinwoo. Then a message from him arrived on Section Chief An's phone. He said they could call it even for investigating him behind his back. It seemed An had truly underestimated him. Although he had been outplayed, at least he had obtained Jinwoo's phone number. He immediately clasped his hands and began praying. But although the statue reacted the next moment, it smiled in a chilling way. When Jinwoo reached level 40, he accepted the job change quest issued by the system. In the next second, countless bolts of purple lightning appeared before him, and then a black hole opened in front of his eyes. At last, it felt like the game was truly beginning. This dungeon was different from all the others, and the system warned him the moment he entered. In this area, potions in the shop could not be used, and he could not leave the dungeon until the quest was complete. The moment the notice ended, a fully armed knight appeared. Jinwoo drew his weapon and prepared to fight, but after landing one strike he realized the armor was unbelievably tough. Even a full-powered slash could not deal any real damage. Before he could react, the knight charged at him with terrifying speed, and the heavy blows nearly overwhelmed him. Jinwoo then tried attacking its vital points, but still could not break through. And this was only the lowest level soldier. Just one of them was enough to force him into a hard fight. In desperation, he decided to use the same move he had used against Kasaka. After successfully taking one down, more and more night monsters joined the battle. Fortunately, Jinwoo, and just like that, the long-haired hunter met a tragic end. Faced with the sudden change, everyone hurried away from the statues, had already found the weakness of these small enemies. But just as he finished removing the last one, his danger sense suddenly triggered. Jinwoo instinctively stabbed behind him, only to discover there were assassin monsters that could turn invisible. Before he could think, a spell came flying at him. Invisibility magic, in the nights from earlier, made this feel like a review of every battle he had survived. The monsters now came in several different types, making this quest far more complicated than Jinwoo had expected. Depending on the monster type, he had to rely on different abilities to clear them. Knights required strength, assassins required perception, archers required agility, and mages required intelligence. Because of that, Jinwoo's stamina began running dangerously low. He wanted to save his skills, but he had not invested much into intelligence early on, so he needed to find a breakthrough fast. Otherwise, if this kept going, he would eventually be worn down and killed. After a long battle, Jinwoo finally defeated all the monsters. Along with a massive level increase, he also obtained plenty of new equipment. Thinking about that, the curly-haired man thought he had run far enough only to be sliced apart by an arrow. Seeing this, Jinwoo suddenly realized he had never actually worn any equipment before, so he decided to try it out. He equipped the full set, and to his surprise, it could even turn invisible, greatly boosting his defense without sacrificing speed. After pushing deeper and deeper, Jinwoo finally reached the Lord's chamber. But the moment he pushed open the door, a cold wind swept over him, sending a chill through his body. Even so, he showed no fear, and the instant he stepped inside, the torches around the room lit one after another. The place looked like a royal palace. As he scanned the area for anything unusual, Jinwoo suddenly felt an overwhelming pressure. The last time he had felt something like this was back in the double dungeon. Before him stood a knight clad in red armor. Just from its stance, Jinwoo could tell this thing was terrifyingly strong, and the deep crimson name marked by the system placed him under pressure unlike anything he had felt before. This enemy was clearly different from the rest Igris, the blood red, the knight guarding an empty throne. Wearing armor that heavy, while still moving at such speed, Jinwoo could only keep running while pulling Juhi along, desperately analyzing what the commandment to praise God truly meant its level was far above his own. For now, Jinwoo could only try to poison it, because that might be his only chance. But no matter how Jinwoo attacked, Igris dodged every strike with effortless precision. The enemy's strength was far beyond what Jinwoo had imagined. His weapons were useless here, so Jinwoo simply abandoned them and chose to fight barehanded. But what he never expected was that after seeing Jinwoo throw away his weapon, Igris would do the same. Was this so-called knightly honor? Either way, Jinwoo could tell he was being looked down on. Even then, Jinwoo was still no match for Igris. Without weapons, Igris only seemed faster and more vicious. Against overwhelming strength, having a weapon or not made little difference. And in close quarters combat, Igris had even more combinations he could unleash. His flurry of punches immediately forced Jinwoo on the defensive. Even with his guard up, he still lost 500 points of stamina. Looking at the statues holding weapons like hammers and swords, then the ones holding instruments, he realized the final group was different. Maybe that was how they were meant to praise. If he had not equipped that defensive gear earlier, his life would already be hanging by a thread. Even without a sword, Igris was this powerful. He was far too strong. Was this really a dungeon meant for someone at level 40? If Jinwoo could not beat him in attack power, then he would pour everything into speed. The instant sprint activated, Jinwoo shot straight toward him. As he circled and accelerated again and again, his speed climbed higher and higher until he struck with lightning-fast force and knocked Igris back. Seeing that the move worked, Jinwoo tried to press the advantage. But little by little, he realized the truth. Igris had been deliberately pretending to lose ground, all to catch Jinwoo. In the following exchange, the speed Jinwoo had been so proud of gradually began to fall behind. Before long, Igris seized an opening and threw him across the room. Seeing Jinwoo lose his ability to fight, Igris moved to finish him off. But at the very moment the greatsword came down, Jinwoo suddenly caught the attack. With the system's notification ringing in his ears, the battle finally came to an end. He quickly told everyone to run beneath the instrument statues. Mr. Song acted at once, and the statue's eyes lit up instantly. Afterward, Jinwoo sat on the ground, only then realizing how unbelievable it was. This victory had been nothing but luck. In technique, strength, and experience, Jinwoo was inferior in every way. If even one thing had gone wrong, he would have been the one dead. Just as he thought that the system sent him the rewards for this dungeon, a bag containing 1,500,000 gold. The S-rank item Red Knight's helmet, which was the first S-rank equipment Jinwoo had ever received. And finally, the skill stone for ruler's authority. Although he had defeated the boss, another problem appeared, because the system had given him a return stone. Not only that, he could not even store it in his inventory. So why had a return stone appeared at this exact moment? Could it be that the job change quest was not over yet? The instant that thought crossed his mind, countless portals appeared behind him. Then, the system issued a new mission. The longer he fought, the more points he would earn. He had just defeated Igris and thought the job change quest would end there, only for the system to throw in a temporary challenge. After barely escaping death, Jinwoo clearly could not endure a long battle, but his desire to rise would not let him give up, because he had always lived at the bottom. Then it began to play, giving everyone a glimpse of hope. But when Jinwoo brought Juhee to another statue, he understood better than anyone how helpless the weak truly were. He refused to die like this, but the more he thought that, the more his inner demons grew. Memories from the past began flooding his mind one after another. Everyone had once told him to give up, but among those voices, one especially familiar voice reached his ears. That was right. Was that not his old self? Even if his appearance had changed, deep down, he was still just as weak as before. In the end, he was still wandering on the edge of death. What made him any different from who he used to be? E-rank hunter Jinwoo. If this was all he had, then it was nowhere near enough, because he kept talking about resolve. Like some kind of empty performance, he had ended up in this situation. The one who truly got him killed was himself. At the critical moment, the system suddenly warned him that a quest remained unfinished. Only then did Jinwoo remember he had not completed his daily quest. It seemed heaven still did not want him to die here, and in the next second he was forcibly sent to the penalty zone. So this was what people meant when they said luck was also a kind of strength. The first time he came here, it nearly killed him. He saw its eyes did not light up, and immediately understood that two people under one statue would not work. So he made a bold decision. Who would have thought the second time would happen like this? But thanks to it, he managed to save his life. Everything he could not do during the job change quest could be done inside the penalty zone, so Jinwoo immediately opened the shop and bought every potion he needed. The man who had been half dead moments ago instantly returned to peak condition. As for the health, he could not recover quickly. He would restore it by leveling up through hunting the desert centipedes. 4 hours was more than enough for Jinwoo to recover all his health. If this pain could not kill him, then it would only make him stronger. In the blink of an eye, 3 hours and 50 minutes passed, and every monster in the penalty zone had been wiped out. But before going back, he still needed to buy an armor-piercing weapon. The assassin's weapon increased damage against armored monsters by 25%. Next came the skill stone he had gained from defeating Igris. The moment he crushed it, Jinwoo learned the skill inside ruler's authority. Now everything was ready. The rest would be left to luck. But when he returned to the dungeon, he found that the number in Jinwoo's world more than 10 years ago, mysterious gates suddenly appeared linking this world to another space. He ran toward the next instrument statue, but just as hope appeared, danger came crashing down again. Of night monsters had increased 2.5 times. Fortunately, things were different now. This time, Jinwoo had come prepared. Not only was he back at peak condition, he also had an armor-piercing weapon, making this far easier than fighting barehanded. But what was this strange feeling? He had defeated so many enemies, yet there was no sign of leveling up. On top of that, the mage monsters behind them kept chanting without attacking. Most likely these night monsters had been summoned by them like weapons, which explained why defeating them gave no experience. In that case, the real targets were the mages. Jinwoo decided he would cut them down first. No wonder the monsters kept increasing no matter how long he fought. They had all been summons from the start. In just a few seconds, the bodies of the monsters Jinwoo killed had piled up like a mountain, and he moved like an unstoppable god of war. Seeing this, the 3 remaining mages joined forces and combined the night monsters together. In an instant, a massive creature appeared before Jinwoo. To capture the enemy, first take the king, so he chose to kill the mages first. The blast hurled Jinwoo away, and just as he struggled to regain his balance, a massive shield came crashing down behind him. Once the source was destroyed, the giant knight would collapse on its own. At last, the time had come for him to choose a class. But after reading the prompt, Jinwoo was confused, because according to the system, he could not choose his class himself. The system would choose for him, matching the class to everything the player had experienced. But when the analyzed class appeared as Necromancer Jinwoo was completely stunned. His intelligence had barely risen, and he was an assassin-type hunter whose fighting style centered on close combat. How could he possibly be a backline mage? But the system's answer was clear. Wherever the player stands, death follows. Wherever the player walks, mountains of corpses and seas of blood remain. Your desire for power allows you to summon an army of the dead. Although it was hard to accept, Jinwoo had just witnessed how terrifying necromancers could be. Those mages had little combat power themselves, but the monsters they summoned were incredibly strong. Combined with his own combat ability, this class could push him even higher. Thinking that Jinwoo accepted the job change, and at that moment, the Shadow Monarch was finally born. Luckily, he had not been completely crushed, and through sheer willpower, he kept crawling forward until he reached the instrument statue. Unexpectedly raising his points had awakened a hidden class, and Jinwoo began hearing cries from all around him, as if they were calling out to him. Before using shadow extraction, he needed to set a command, and after a moment of thought, he chose one word: arise. Looking at the shadow army before him, Jinwoo was left in awe, yet he still felt like something was missing. That was it, he had soldiers but no general. Thinking of that, he turned his gaze toward Igris. If he could add Igris to his ranks, it would be like giving wings to a tiger. Without hesitation, he used shadow extraction on him, and a cloud of black mist suddenly burst outward. Shadow extraction failed with 2 attempts remaining. Jinwoo had not expected it to fail, but as long as he still had chances, he had to try. He began the second extraction, but it failed again. Clearly, Igris was resisting from the very depths of his being. Then Jinwoo looked toward the throne nearby, as if he had finally understood something. He probably did not need to say much more. Was Igris waiting for his king to return? A king who might never come back. Igris was that truly what he wanted. The giant foot slammed down right behind him, but Jinwoo had already made it to his destination. The danger was finally over. Was swinging his sword against enemies not his true desire? Did he really want his blade to rot away in this ruined place? But he had lost one of his legs. Even so, he felt no relief because the final commandment had yet to be triggered. Just then, the statue's palm suddenly opened, and a round stone platform rose from the center. It looked like an altar, and perhaps this was how they were meant to revere God. Seeing this, one man immediately raised his weapon and threatened Mr. Song. Because of Mr. Song's decision, everyone had been dragged into danger, and human nature began to crack once again. Mr. Song accepted it almost like fate and walked to the center of the altar. A yellow flame lit up, but nothing else happened. Jinwoo could not figure out what was going on, so he asked his teammates to carry him over. Instantly, 3 more yellow flames appeared. Inside them were dungeons filled with monsters that ordinary human weapons could never hope to defeat. Yet there was still no change. Maybe it was not enough, so he told Joo-hee and the others to join them. More flames rose around the altar, and then a ring of light spread outward, causing blue flames to ignite. Was this finally the way to clear the trial? While everyone was still confused, the door unexpectedly opened. They could not tell whether it was a trap, but the answer came in the form of a rumbling sound. The statues began glowing and slowly turned toward them. Jinwoo looked closely and realized the statues had actually stopped moving. He quickly told everyone to keep staring and not blink or the statues would keep getting closer. But one girl could not take it anymore. She gave up resisting and ran straight for the door, which shrank slightly the moment she escaped. Did that mean the god had grown angry? No one dared gamble on it, but by then another young hunter could no longer hold on. Even if it was a trap, he refused to endure any longer. Seeing this, the older man dropped his sword and chose to risk everything for his family. Watching the others leave, the 3 who remained nearly broke down. Mr. Song chose to stay behind. At the same time, certain people awakened special powers, and with nothing but their own strength, telling Jinwoo to take Joo-hee and escape. But Jinwoo knew his current condition made it impossible to carry anyone out. So he handed Joo-hee the magic crystal and told her that if they survived, she owed him a meal. Mr. Song then knocked Joo-hee unconscious, carried her out as fast as he could, and left Jinwoo behind to face a hopeless fate. With a casual strike, the statue lifted him like he weighed nothing. But perhaps Jinwoo never realized this might have been a mysterious test. Those who passed would be given a path forward. From then on, the man had to do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and 100 squats every day. But this was not something he chose for himself. Not long ago, he had received a system that assigned him daily training quests. If he failed to complete them, the system would throw him into a monster-filled desert and force him to train for 4 hours. Earlier, Jinwoo had been on the verge of death inside the dungeon when a system window appeared saying he had completed a quest. The quest was called Courage of the Weak, and accepting it would grant him the right to become a player. Refusing meant his heart would stop after 0.02 of a second. Seeing that, Jinwoo naturally accepted without the slightest hesitation. When he opened his eyes again, they could easily slay magical beasts, harvest magic crystals, and sell them for money. But every hunter's power, he found himself lying in a hospital, and even his severed limbs had grown back. That left Jinwoo completely baffled. Had everything that happened before been nothing more than a dream? Just then, two investigators from the Hunters Association walked in. Their purpose was to ask Jinwoo about what had happened inside the dungeon. After talking with them, Jinwoo learned that he had been unconscious for 3 full days and nights. Mr. Song, who managed to escape, had lost one arm and would likely choose to retire. As for Ju-hee, although she was not physically injured, she had suffered severe psychological trauma. Judging by her current condition, whether she could ever continue working as a hunter was still unknown. Then the investigators told Jinwoo something else. What troubled them was that after receiving the survivor's report, they had rushed to the scene with a rescue team as quickly as possible, only to find Jinwoo lying there alone, with none of the things the survivors had described. Because of that, they suspected Jinwoo might have undergone a second awakening.